Hey listeners, welcome to Straight Wife Trans Life. I'm Lisa, and I am excited to end the season with a very special interview. Abbe Kruger is a life coach who dedicates herself to supporting cisgender and straight spouses and couples managing changes in sexuality, gender identity, and gender expression. Prior to becoming a life coach, she was an attorney and an executive recruiter and CEO of a national startup. Abbe can help you and your spouse navigate the changes and questions through transition no matter where you are located, anywhere in the world. I will include a link to Abbe's website in the episode description, and I will return in January, but until then, please get comfortable and listen to Abbe share how a partner coming out can impact us and how the transitioning partner slowing down can help the non-transitioning partner to catch up. Welcome, Abbe. I'm excited to talk with you today.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for being here. You are a life coach and an important part of the healing process for those of us who have a partner or spouse who have come out as transgender. And I like your wording that you are committed to providing safe spaces for cis and straight partners and those in relationships with diverse gender identities or sexuality. So thank you. We really need you. So let's dive right in. When a loved one comes out to a spouse or partner, and in this case, as a transgender person, it is such a unique scenario. What are some of the struggles for the partner or spouse, the person who's on the receiving end?
Well, there are some couples who are not really challenged, actually, and accept it openly and freely. Either they anticipated it or they were told about it before or early on in the relationship. Those aren't the individuals that generally seek my assistance. I work predominantly with cisgendered straight women who thought they were partnered with straight cis males who later came out as trans women. And I'm using the word transgender as kind of a generic umbrella term, as I guess just not a cis individual whose gender identity is not consistent with the identity they were assigned at birth. So just so we're all on the same page, just thought it was good to set that out. But the folks that do come to me, they have a variety of different issues. And a lot of it depends on their relationship and their background. But most of them do have an issue with isolation. Their partners were in the closet for some period of time. And often the partner is the first person that is informed. And the partner then is brought into the closet with the trans partner. So that's tough. The cis partner was just told something that they feel is potentially, life-altering, life-shattering in some cases. Mm-hmm. And they really are looking for support, and instead they've been kind of cut off, and many experience challenges socially or with family because they feel as though they're being deceptive by not being forthright. But to maintain the trust of their trans partner, they maintain that isolation. Others have problems with, once they do come out, with friends, with family, managing a different perception of themselves socially. They were previously part of a cisgendered heterosexual community, and now all of a sudden they're automatically queer. And the reverse is true. There are gay couples where one partner transitions, and now all of a sudden someone who has been firmly rooted within the queer community has all of their friends and their chosen family in that space, and now they appear as a heterosexual cisgendered couple, and that can be just as uncomfortable. And ultimately, I think the biggest problem that all cis partners faces is kind of an invisibility. If there is support for the trans partner, which of course we always hope there is, it's usually focused on that trans partner. Everyone is so thrilled that that person has found the courage and the strength to be their true self. They want to support that authenticity. And the cis partner kind of gets lost in the sauce and can't find support socially or even therapeutically. A number of therapists don't have experience in this arena and don't understand the particulars, the nuances, the trajectory that one is on once they find out that their partner is trans. So that's kind of a broad scope response. Certainly there are changes within the relationship as well that can be challenging. Would you like to go into a few of those?
Oh, absolutely. No, I love that you're touching on the invisible part for partners, because that is a huge deal. So yes, please continue.
For sure. And I'll tell you, it's a radical change, right? When your partner changes gender, and the faster the transitioning partner wants to transition, usually the more devastating the change can be, or at least unsettling for the cis straight partner. So there's changes in sexuality, sexual attraction as the transitioning partner perhaps medically transitions. They may go on hormones, they may grow breasts, they may lose sexual functionality, they may change psychologically, their personality may seem different, for better and for worse. We've heard it all.
Yeah.
A number of straight partners will say that in the beginning, HRT, it's like living with a teenage daughter, a teenage girl going through adolescence. Her emotions are erratic and not always the most grounded, but often the psychological changes are positive, either initially or eventually. Some trans folks go off of psych meds when they're able to access appropriate hormone replacement therapy. They have a much stronger sense of self. They're much calmer and have less anxiety. And being their authentic self makes them a much easier partner to be with. So there's definitely positives and negatives there. And then there's surgical changes that could occur.
Yes.
Right? Caregiving, complications, making room for all of those changes in your life, accepting a new appearance in your partner, and not losing your sense of self, not allowing the whole transition to just be about what the transitioning partner needs. If the non-transitioning partner doesn't find some way to focus on their own needs and make sure that they devote some time caring for themselves and they're just 100% committed to the transition, that also tends to fall apart somewhat.
That's huge.
Huge, right? Resentment can be engendered. You lose your own identity in supporting the person that you love. And that's never good for anyone.
Yes.
There are more depending on the circumstance, but that should give you a nice overview of what most straight cis partners experience when they are not anticipating their partner's transition.
Yes. What enables couples or partners in my unique situation to stay together after one comes out as transgender?
Well, it definitely is couple specific, but it's often the same stuff, the same ingredients that any solid, successful relationship needs, right? Honesty, trust, communication. Although those three things, honesty, trust, and communication, are, I think, even more important in this context. Because when one partner has been kind of hiding who their authentic self is, at no fault of their own, there's no judgment involved in that. It's just there's so much societal pressure and so much to lose and so much questioning. There, a lot of times it takes a long period of time before the trans individual even understands that they are in fact trans. So when the non-transitioning partner learns of it, often it feels like there was deception. It feels like there was a lack of honesty, and it does affect their ability to trust the transitioning partner, even when the transitioning partner wasn't, actively lying or doing anything behind their partner's back. It still feels unsettling and like uncertain, right? So that's really key: honesty, trust, and communication. And the other thing I would add is that the transition is something that the couple is going through. The successful couples that I've worked with are ones where it's not only about the transitioning partner, that the transition is viewed as something that they're doing together, which sometimes requires compromise and often requires the transitioning partner to slow down. Because,
Oh,
the
yeah.
transitioning partners waited for all this time to finally be their authentic self, and they just want to just sprint out of the gate and get to the finish line. And it's a lot to digest for the non-transitioning partner. And if the transitioning partner is able to just kind of put the brakes on a little bit and allow the non-transitioning partner to catch up, things that used to be unacceptable to the non-transitioning partner over time can become acceptable, palatable, even desirable. I've seen a complete 180 shift in some circumstances.
Oh,
So
wow. Yeah.
I think those are the elements that have enabled couples who really want to stay together and are really working hard at it to do so, because it is a lot of work.
It
Even
is.
for those who want it, it's a lot of
Absolutely.
work.
Yes, and it's interesting that you brought up the deception because that's how I felt in the beginning. I felt like, oh my gosh, this person has lied to me for so long. But then I had to sit and think about it and go, oh, wait a minute, this isn't really what's happening. They just didn't know. And so that was a whole process in itself.
Right, right. So
Yeah.
did your partner go through a long process of just figuring out and kind of coming to that reality?
Yes, yes. I think she always knew that something was different or wrong, but she didn't connect it to transgender because she loves women. And I think sometimes we think that, well, if I'm transgender, that means that I love men now. And so when she went to a therapist who's like, that there are lesbian transgender people. So then,
Right.
and then that kind of was like, oh, and then everything started to click for her. It took me a minute, but then I was like, okay, I see what's going on. And it's not about me. And it's not that you were lying to me. It's just that you didn't know what was going on with
That's right.
yourself.
That's right. And if I could add also, there's a generational component to this that I think intensifies that process. The younger folks now being trans or being non-binary or not cis is a part of their experience. It's kind of a non-issue. But, folks that are in their 40s, 50s, 60s, even 70s, I know a few couples I've worked with in their 70s when they came out. There's so much shame indoctrinated. There's religious beliefs. There's a lifetime of just conception about social norms and what's appropriate and all of that older folks need to get past. And it's even harder for them because then the people around them are just less accustomed to what being trans looks like, what it means. So I do think that older generations do struggle more with coming to terms with their transgender identity than the younger ones.
Right. And that's a whole other piece to the puzzle is that you have to help the individual, the spouse, or, the couple figure out how they're going to deal with things like families and politics and navigating all of that.
For sure. And if that trans person didn't have enough difficulty coming to terms with it themselves, just imagine you have the weight of the world, you feel like, on your shoulders. Being trans has become the quintessential wedge issue in our modern politics. And, that's a lot to carry around. That's,
It really is.
that's tough. And the family piece that you mentioned also can be extremely challenging. I always tell my clients when there's going to be a coming out, don't think that what you expect is necessarily going to happen. Sometimes the most liberal amongst us have the greatest challenge accepting it. And I have seen some real conservative folks out there have no problem. So people don't respond to this issue the way you might anticipate. And sometimes that also throws folks for a loop.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Being scared to tell somebody, and then they're like, "Oh, yeah, no big deal," and you're like, "Oh, what?"
Or the whispering in the back of the room, or I've had people whose children are no longer permitted to play with their best friends.
Right, which is awful.
Yeah, family vacations have been canceled. I mean, really, secondary and tertiary trauma associated. if we just had a little bit more education out there, perhaps we could avoid some of that. It's, that love is love really needs to catch on a little bit more, I think. And
Yes.
people that are happy and aren't bothering anyone else, I don't really see what the problem is. But yeah, it's tough. And, those people tend to have a heart of gold once they've been able to endure all that and get on with their lives.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that not everybody stays together, and it's really traumatic. I think that trauma is a good word to use in this situation, but there are some uplifting moments, I'm sure, where something positive happens along the journey for people. Do you see that when you're helping others?
Oh, sure. Absolutely. And you're right. Sometimes, more often than not, couples don't stay together. We don't have good data on this, but, a large chunk fall off initially when the trans individual comes out. And then there's another group that tries and they just can't. They try to make a go of it, and there are too many challenges involved, and they find that they're happier living separate lives. They maintain relationship with one another. Sometimes they're co-parent. But for those that are able to find a path forward, there's definitely moments of unexplicable joy. I mean, trans joy, when an individual feels like their expression, that their outward self is consistent with their inward self, and you see the transformation in them, not just physically, but the joy that they're able to experience, and the way they're able to live their life. It's really profound. And often their personality changes. They become such a happier, more content person that it's easier to live with them. The cis straight partner didn't know why their partner might have been anxious or depressed or just difficult. And a lot of that kind of dissolves away once they're able to be themselves, and the relationship becomes better. So it's a little bit of a trade-off. And sometimes that's what saves the marriage, because the physicality may not be what the cis partner wanted, but to have this more whole, more joyful partner it's beautiful. It's a wonderful, uplifting change in their relationship. Some remarry, some will renew their vows in their authentic gender. And, I think it's just an expression that the greatest love of all is the love that can transcend gender variance. I mean, if you can transcend that, there's really nothing you can't manage to get through together, right?
I agree. And I can relate to the person being this whole person, because I see that with my spouse. I was always like, is it me? Am I doing something? Like something always felt a little bit off. And then after she came out, it's like, oh my gosh, you're such a happier version of, you're still happy, but it's a happier version.
Yeah. And I'm sure it affects probably all the aspects in I don't want to put words in your mouth, but does it affect all the aspects of your relationship, parenting or?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, the physicality is not the same, but the emotional connection is stronger than ever. And having my best friend there, and our child is really happy and gets along very well with all the changes, I think is better than it was.
Oh, I bet. And isn't it amazing? Children generally, not all the time, but generally have no problem accepting the change. And in fact, embrace the change in attitude and demeanor so much in their transition parent.
My son and my spouse are just like these two peas in the pod now. They're just always laughing together and coming up with little shenanigans.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's so nice.
Yeah,
that's so great to hear.
One more question. Do you see trends among partners or individuals that you help? Are there common things or any differences that sort of stick out in general when working with people in our situation?
Well, I don't know if I would say it's a trend so much. It seems as though there's either cis partners who become asexual, where the partner, they don't have a sexual relationship any longer. And then there are folks who can reinvent their sex life through toys or expansion in identity or what have you. So it seems to be that folks fall in one of those two camps. And the other trend I would say is, as I was referencing before, the slowing down piece seems to universally help couples. And it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
I firmly believe that it's on a spectrum. And there are some folks that just can't slow down. It's kind of beyond them. But for those who can, it really helps the non-transitioning partner get used to things. And sometimes they come to accept things so much over time. Some cis partners start to experiment with their own gender identity and their own sexuality. And lo and behold, it opens up kind of the floor for self-discovery in a way that they would not have otherwise had. So that seems to be pretty common throughout the folks that do stay in relationships. They become much more accepting. Most structures are broken down, and folks are much more introspective and allow themselves to find out who their authentic self is as well.
Yeah, that's important that we don't lose the spouse, who's on the receiving end doesn't lose their self through the whole thing.
Huge. It's
Yeah.
huge. I think it's the key, because if you think you're just being selfless and just supporting the other person, I mean, you may be in that moment, but it will eventually come back to you. You have to take care of yourself before you take care of others.
Mm-hmm.
It couldn't be more true than in this context. If you don't find a way to find your own joy, to take care of your own self, and you just devote yourself to your partner, you do get lost in it. And
Absolutely.
if you don't have two partners, equal partners in a relationship, it won't work. So it's key for sure. Everybody goes on a self-discovery journey when one person transitions, if they're going to make it together.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for your time, Abbe, and thank you for helping couples and individuals. You are such a key person for helping so many people heal.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for your work and getting the word out and educating folks about the experience.
Oh, thank you. And who knows, maybe we'll have you back in the future.
That'd be great. It would be my pleasure.
Okay, bye, Abbe.
Bye-bye.